Hello, beautiful souls. Today I wanted to talk about the intention of movement. And the reason I want to talk about this is because sometimes we can perceive movement through a particular lens and limit what is possible through movement. And I will speak from personal experience that I have gone down the rabbit hole of beating the absolute shit out of my body and not taking care of it and abusing it and pushing it to the absolute max. And in some ways, I learned and grew a lot from that, and it allowed me to recognize what my threshold is and recognizing that sometimes I can push myself further than I think that I can, and most of us can do that as well. However, when I was focusing specifically just on the anatomical perspective of movement, how my muscles are working and the alignment of my body, I would find that the movement was very technical. I would also find that it was a little bit more robotic and forced, which in some ways, such as in bodybuilding and even in specific movement techniques, that is useful. But when it came time to experiencing days where maybe I was incredibly fatigued, my body hurt, and I was having really painful joint cracking and I couldn't move very much, or I just wasn't feeling very well, but I to some degree knew my body needed blood flow and a little bit of movement. At the time, I hadn't even considered any other way of moving my body because it was very much this all or nothing perspective. But when I started to begin to recognize energy and this concept of moving from a place of energy, how energy is flowing through the body, and even thinking about this lightness, this airiness of movement. A lot of times you'll see this technique of movement used in Tai Chi or Qigong. So I began to explore this approach to movement through dance. And even when I was lifting weights, there were times where I would play with this concept of lifting with the intention of energy moving my body rather than forcing and thinking so much about the muscle, thinking about the in-between, that flow of energy that's happening underneath. And what I would find is that when I would lead with this concept of energy in movement, it would become much less taxing. And I also would find it to be very nourishing and also restorative. And so now I take that information and am able to apply it so that if I'm having a day where maybe I haven't moved very much, but I'm feeling fatigued, maybe I'm just completely and utterly drained, or maybe my immune system is a little bit compromised, there's different factors that can impact it, or even just from being so mentally fatigued, which can deplete us completely. Sometimes you may not want to do this all-out physical exertion. So now I will sometimes just lay in bed or do a series of somatic movements on the floor, or I'll dance in a way that's very internal and I'm just focusing on the sensation of the energy moving, and it's just allowing my body to find a sense of flow without effort. And that was actually something that I learned in college through a technique called Alexander technique. And I had worked with a professor that trained me and taught me how we can actually overutilize energy, and sometimes of the simplest tasks in life, like when we're driving our car, like just gripping the steering wheel and tensing our shoulders, right? Versus just letting it soften and release. So playing with this concept through movement and exploring, okay, how much energy do I really need to utilize to still honor my body, to get some blood flow, and to also really connect with myself here. The third way in which we can approach movement is actually emotionally. So we can honor what it is that we're experiencing from an emotional standpoint. So whether we're experiencing anger, grief, sadness, bliss, love, whatever it is that you're experiencing from an emotional perspective, you do have the ability to express that through movement as well. Sometimes there can be a sense of, if we're overstimulated, we're feeling really rageful or angry, we don't always know how to compartmentalize what we're thinking or feeling, and we can just lash out. But if we can take an opportunity to pause and honor the emotion that's coming up through movement. So if we think of anger, it might have a little bit more tension and tightness. It might move very fast, right? So starting to think about how can I move my body to honor that particular emotion. Same with things like grief or sadness. Identifying where you feel it in your body and observing the qualities of it, so that way you can start to identify, how does this emotion want to move through my body? So with these three perspectives of movement, anatomical, energetic, and emotional, we can start to better tune into the experience of our body, and also on a day-to-day basis identify, how does my body want to move today? Does it want to go balls to the wall at the gym and lift really heavy? Or do I want to do a HIIT circuit? Do I want to do some calisthenics? Or do I want to move my body in a more gentle flow way in which I'm focusing more on my breath? Maybe I want to dance. Maybe I want to do a series of body weight movements, but just going very slow and controlled and focusing on the breath and the energy moving through. Or do I need to really tune into what my emotions are telling me today and explore that through movement? So there's these three really imperative ways that we can focus on how we want to and honor our bodies, and also listening to what intention we need to focus on that day for our body as well. I hope that this information is useful for you guys. This is something that has drastically transformed how I take care of my body on a day-to-day basis, and also has allowed me to tune in to understanding how I need to honor my body each day without burning myself out, and also without feeling bad if I can't fully overexert myself on a specific day, because we go through ebbs and flows as humans. And especially women, we go through hormonal fluctuations, so we're going to be going through different times of the month with different states of energy. Even if we're dealing with things like chronic illness or injuries, we sometimes immediately omit movement altogether, but in all actuality, sometimes movement is just what we need. It's just a matter of expanding that lens of how we can perceive movement. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think and how you've explored these different intentions of movement. And I'd love to hear more from you guys. So I will be sharing more myself in future videos. And I wish you guys a beautiful day or night whenever you find this. Bye guys.